What is going on, YouTube? Welcome back to Fireside Rangers. I'm your host, Eric Wilson. Today, joined by my co host, Will Cohen, and special guest star, Jonny Lazarus, host and analyst for the NHL and Daily Faceoff. I'm sure many of you guys watching will recognize him. Jonny, thanks for joining us today. How you doing today?
I'm good, Eric. Appreciate you guys having me. Will, good to see you again. Very excited to talk Rangers, and I'm excited to see what you guys got for me. Let's do it.
Yeah, we'll get right on into it. We're going to be doing a little bit of a breakdown and an analysis of the first half of the season. I know the Rangers have played 43 games now, so it's really the first half plus 2 games. But before we really get into that, make sure you guys like, subscribe, ring that bell so you don't miss a notification. If you're watching us on Apple or Spotify, be sure to give us a 5-star review. Be sure to leave your thoughts down in the comment section below. And lastly, be sure to follow us on all of our social media accounts at Fireside Rangers on both Instagram and X. But right into it, Jonny, I guess we'll start with you, just your overall thoughts throughout the first half of the season. Because, we started hot, then we weren't so hot, and now we're on a little bit of a winning streak again, but just your initial impression on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been a bit of a surprise, a bit of a letdown, a bit of exceeded expectations. It's been every single emotion, I think, and that's kind of what we expected a little bit going into the year. I don't think anyone would have expected the Rangers to be as successful as they've been. To be quite honest, I think the expectation was anywhere between third and like fifth in the Metro this year. In the preseason, the Rangers didn't really get much respect going in just because of the new coaching staff and a lot of question marks with the roster changes over the summer and whatnot. And, you bring in like 6, 7 guys on $800K deals and league minimum salaries and whatnot. So it was a little bit interesting to see what this team looked like at the start of the season. But, under Laviolette, it's not very uncommon that his teams do well in the first year and, react well to his voice and just his fiery personality. And I think the team responded very well. But then obviously the injury bug kind of played a factor. You lose Adam Fox for a bit, you lose Shesterkin for a bit, you lose Hedel for a bit, you lose Kakko for a bit. The Rangers have had every opportunity in this first half to make excuses for themselves, and they haven't. And that's something that you have to respect about this group as well, even though there has been a bit of a skid lately. But I'd say, as far as the first half goes, it's, I think there's not much more you can ask for from the fan base, just with the cards they've been dealt. And, I think they've set themselves up pretty good here for the second half.
Yeah, that's a good take on it. I think I was in agreement heading into the year. I never really expected the Rangers to be as good as they were. I was in the same boat where I figured the chances of winning the Metropolitan weren't that high. You would have assumed it would have been Carolina or New Jersey that was going to take it, and the Rangers would have tried to make that push for at least second to get home ice in a potential first round playoff series. But kind of came as a surprise, the fact that the Rangers developed such a large lead in the Metro, sat as the number one team in the NHL heading into the new year. And I know that lead that the Rangers have had in the Metro has kind of slipped away a little bit. They still hold the spot, but I know there's a few teams that are rapidly catching up because of this little slump that they've been in. But kind of like going off of what Jonny said, there have been a lot of injuries throughout the first half of the season. And obviously, it's been holding them back a lot. I think the biggest one was definitely Kakko and Hedel going down at the same time. Rangers having to have a couple of AHL guys in there on the roster for a little bit. But now that Kakko's back and Hedel has been skating, hopefully we'll be back soon. How much of an impact do you think that's going to make on the Rangers heading into the second half of the season? Do you think it's going to kind of put things back on track, or is there still more work that needs to be done?
Well, for Kakko, I think it was a fresh start coming back. I think he was pretty open in saying that he didn't like his beginning of the season. And I think it was, 21 games he played before he got hurt.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he told us that in the media, just like, he wanted to forget about it. And I think being hurt allowed him to reflect on it and kind of move past it because, let's face it, like Kaapo Kakko was getting first line minutes every opportunity you could ask for, aside from like first power play time. And he didn't necessarily run with it. And it was very disappointing for, I think everyone, fans, him, the organization, management, coaching staff, I think for everybody. And then, obviously there was an experiment with Blake Wheeler on the first line and he steps in and he does a good job. And, I wouldn't say he was exceptional, but he was as good as they needed him to be. And again, I think people kind of lose sight in the fact that this isn't like the 90-point Blake Wheeler that the Rangers got. This is an 800K player, and I think because of his name, you kind of expect more from him, but that's just not the player he is today. He's still capable of doing, great things in the NHL, but he's not going to be the 90-point guy that we once saw. And I think that's where Ranger fans kind of had a little disconnect just because they expected a lot more from him. But it's kind of unfair to ask when a guy's making 800K. But then again, you look at a guy like Eric Gustafson, who steps up massively when Adam Fox goes down, plays incredible, produces points. And now that Fox is back, he's kind of taking a step back a little bit. I know he scored a goal the other night, but haven't seen that production as consistent as what it was when Fox was out. And I think just having Kako and Hedel back just rounds out the roster a little bit more. Obviously Johnny Brodzinski's come in and done a decent job. You wish he'd score more points and produce a little bit more offensively, but you're asking every night AHL guy to come in and produce at the NHL level consistently is a pretty big ask. And then who else am I missing here? Who are the other AHL guys that have come up?
Oh, Anton Bleed came up.
Some guys have come up for a game or two.
Yeah.
But nothing consistent. But I think, I just having the roster that they've put together for this year, having them back in full unison is only going to do positive things. And I think having Kako now come back, and you've seen in the first couple of games, he's simplified his game a little bit. He's not overhandling the puck like he sometimes is guilty of in the offensive zone. He's been shooting more a little bit, thinking shoot more, and getting rid of the puck quicker as opposed to holding on to it, trying to box out guys in the corners and make a play to the point, but then not get to the net. So I think Kako, just for him, it's a good reset. And I think it can only do positives. I didn't mean to ramble on there, but
It's all good. I am curious to hear Will's opinion, though, because as Johnny just mentioned, the Rangers brought on a few new players, Bonino, Gustafson, Wheeler, all in these really short, cheap contracts. Now, Will, I know me and you have been very critical of Blake Wheeler this season. I know we shouldn't expect a lot from him on a deal, as Johnny said, just $800,000. But I still feel like he could be doing a little bit more. He is still lacking a little bit despite that. But Will, I know right before we started recording, you were texting me about Nick Bonino and how maybe just taking him out of the lineup and putting in Pitlick. But it's just your thoughts, like of everyone the Rangers brought in, who's impressed you the most and who has disappointed you the most?
I think the one guy who's impressed me the most is I'd have to go with Eric Gustafson. That's such like a generic answer just because of he had a very good season last year, but I was most excited about him. And I mean, when Adam Fox was down for the 10 games Eric Gustafson stepped up perfectly. I mean, power play 1 did take a dip, but it wasn't like they were still scoring. I mean, he was still making plays on it. He was doing what he needed to. Disappointment, man, I don't even know who I want to go with here.
It's a tough one.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think myself, honestly.
Like, I don't want to say Blake Wheeler because, in all honesty, when he came here, he really wasn't supposed to be a first-line right winger. He was supposed to be a depth piece on the third line. Obviously, after 10 games, Kako didn't work out on the first line, so we had to come up because that was our best option there. But, I mean, I really can't say. Like, this is such a hard. I can't say who's the most disappointing. Like that. It's such a hard.
Maybe that's a good thing too, because that just means that everyone that we brought in is actually playing good. Maybe it's
or at least doing their job.
Yeah, they're doing their job. They're not doing anything like that. They're not doing anything more that they need to. They're not doing anything less. They're doing their jobs, and that's what really that's what matters. That was perfect, Johnny. Actually.
I know for me, like the one player that stands out that I've had my own like personal frustrations with is definitely Nick Bonino, but kind of at the same time, he's put in a situation where he's in a role where he wasn't brought in to be, ever since Hedel got injured, he's been on that third line when in reality, we really only needed him for that fourth line center, which he's kind of started to align with these last few games. And I believe tonight's game against Vegas, he's from playing down on that fourth line again too. So hopefully, he'll start to get his skills back up and start doing what he was brought in to do. But I kind of want to just transition now to just the overall roster, on a season where the Rangers have just shocked everyone and just outperformed everyone's expectations and just raised the bar. A lot of players are playing out of their minds. And to me, the biggest standout player that I think has been the MVP so far, Artemi Panarin. Johnny, I don't know if you know, but he's easily my favorite player in a very long time. I'm obsessed with Panarin. I'm just curious to know, what are your thoughts on his season? We know he's having a career year, not just points wise, but every aspect of the game. Just what is your thoughts on his season so far?
I mean, I talked to Mike Rupp about it today on our show, The Morning Cup of Hockey, and I said, I think I'm convinced in any year that this is Panarin's year to win MVP. And not to discredit anything from like Nathan McKinnon, Nikita Kucherov, David Pastrnak, and Connor McDavid. Those are the other like 4 names I had in there. He brought up Sidney Crosby as well because Crosby's carried the Penguins this year. But you look at the Rangers' expectations. You look at what Panarin's done to uplift Vincent Trocheck, to uplift Alexis Lafreniere. Like, yeah, those are 2 good hockey players. Lafreniere hadn't necessarily proved it fully yet at the NHL level, but I think playing with Panarin has really risen his game a little bit. And Lafreniere has been a huge bonus this year. And then Vincent Trocheck again has been, pretty sure a point a game player for the Rangers. And a lot of that has to do with playing with Panarin. He wasn't producing like that in the third line at the start of the year. And then once he's moved up to Panarin's line and result of the Hedl injury, his game starts to flourish. And, there's been so many games where the Rangers just can't provide any 5-on-5 offense. And every time it's Artemi Panarin that's doing it. He's been the one to answer the call every time they need it. He's uplifted the power play. He's playing better defensively as well. Like, I don't know where this Ranger team is right now without Panarin playing at the level he's at. And you look at the other teams in the league, you look at the other guys that are running for MVP. Nikita Kucherov, I think him and Pastrnak have a little bit of an edge over like McDavid and McKinnon just because, and granted, this is a huge flaw in the way that it works, but it's true. McKinnon has the support of Cale Makar and Mikko Rantanen, who are 2 other like top 10 players in the NHL. And Connor McDavid has Leon Draisaitl, who's a top 10 player as well. And, when McDavid and McKinnon are out of the lineup, those are still good hockey teams. Like, I don't care what anyone says. If Panarin's not in this lineup, luckily we haven't had to see that yet this year. Like, I don't know what this team looks like. And I don't know if they're successful as they've been. But granted, like I said, Kucherov and Pastrnak have carried the load for their team. So you can make the argument with those 2. But if you ask me, I think this is, far and away the best season I've seen Artemi Panarin play hockey, not even just in New York and in all of his stops. And a lot of that has to do with his confidence and his shoot first mentality, which I'm sure we'll touch on. But yeah, I think what he's doing has just been everything this team could want and more. And he's doing it defensively also, which I think is huge.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing because not only is he on pace to have the first 100-point season of his career, Laviolette and the way that he's changed the style of hockey the Rangers are playing, Panarin has reaped the benefits of that probably the most out of anyone on the team. Last season he had like over 100 giveaways, and I don't know exactly how many he has now, but I'm sure he's on track to have far less. He's making takeaways now. He's playing good defensively. And like kind of like you mentioned, Johnny, he's like looking to shoot the puck more. Last season, one of the biggest critiques I had from Panarin was that he kept looking to pass way too much, tried to be too fancy, especially in that first round against New Jersey. And it was a big part of why he failed to produce any points in that series and why the Rangers got eliminated. So I guess kind of the next thing I want to talk about is Peter Laviolette. The way that he's worked wonders for Panarin, he's done wonders for a lot of other players on the team too. The defense in particular, I know it's been a little shaky these like recent stretch of games there, but heading into the season and for pretty much the first 20 games of the year, the Rangers were leading the league in goals against. They were playing amazing defensively. I had no problems, no critiques with anything that was going on there until now, just recently. I think Keandre Miller has looked extremely inconsistent. Same thing goes for Braden Schneider. And like, I don't know, I have faith that Laviolette will be able to fix it once again. It's not the end of the world. It's not like a season ending problem that's been growing here, I think, but there's definitely some work that needs to be done. So Johnny, how do you think the Rangers do that? What does Laviolette do to improve the defense?
Well, I mean, the good thing is that these are fixable mistakes. Like a lot of the mistakes the Rangers are making are just, careless plays with the puck management and their decision making. And a lot of that has to do in the D zone. Like they've turned a lot of puck overs lately, and it's something that's a little bit uncharacteristic of them for the most part. I mean, there have been guys that have been known to do it, but like, the funniest thing about it is that the defenseman that probably caught the most flack last year was the Rangers captain, Jacob Trouba, and I think he's been the most consistent D-man all year long. And I think he's just like playing simple. He's thinking a little bit more defensive minded. He's blocking a lot of shots. He's, been asked to match up against other teams' top lines, and he's doing a pretty good job with it. But the way the Rangers are defending right now is just a little bit too loose. You see Trouba and Lindgren be the physical players that they are. Can't really ask more of them physically, but you want to see Fox, Miller, Gustafsson, and Schneider just do a better job at boxing out in front of the net. Like that's been a huge mental lapse area, I think, for the Rangers this year. They're not really like winning battles at the top of the crease and in the slot area. You see a lot of teams getting second and third opportunities. One game I think of in particular is the Carolina game. The Rangers just look so sloppy in their own zone. Carolina comes into MSG and, runs them out of the building, winning 6-1, like just a really ugly game for the Rangers. And then, I know a lot of people use the Vancouver game as a example, but yeah, the Rangers outchance the Canucks. Sure, they get more high danger chances, whatever you want to call it. But like the Canucks are getting 2-on-1s, they're getting breakaways, they're getting all these extremely dangerous chances that, I've used this example now like 4 or 5 times. If the Rangers get 12 chances and the Canucks get 6, if the Canucks have 4 of 6 of those chances be 2-on-1s or 3-on-2s and breakaways, like I'm taking those chances any day over like a shot from the point with a rebound. Like that's a high danger chance, sure, but it's not like, JT Miller wide open in the slot with a one-time pass. It's a different kind of chance. So I think for them, they just have to tighten up. They have to be, closer on their checks. And, these are just simple mental lapses that they're having. And so it's not a huge concern because they can flip that switch like that and just lock in, and then it's fine, like they did in the first 20 games of the year.
Yeah. And what you were just saying about this difference in the scoring chances, it reminded me of the stat I saw. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was like games in which the Rangers had like a really high amount of shots. They had a really bad losing record. And it's just because, the Rangers are taking shots on net, but they're not good shots on net. Half of them are probably shots from the point, like you said. But Will, I need to ask you your opinion on this. I know we talked about it a little bit earlier this season, the goaltending. Igor went through a little bit of a rough stretch. Jonathan Quick has kind of come back down to earth. And over here on Fireside Rangers, we've always been very big Igor supporters. When he's going through a slump, we will never turn our backs on him. But Will, I'm curious to know how you think Igor has been playing recently, because he's picked it up a little bit. And then I'm also curious to know, Johnny, just your overall opinion on the goaltending situation when Will's done.
So first, I just want to go back to Panarin because I wanted to say something about that. Panarin, okay,
going way back.
Panarin this year reminds me of the 2019-20 season when he came in third in the Hart Trophy voting. And I will argue, I will die on the hill that should have won that trophy, because if you took away McKinnon, if you took away Draisaitl from their teams, yes, they're super valuable because of how many points they put up, but the reason the Rangers were crawling at the end of the year to the playoffs was because of Artemi Panarin. And that's how it is this year. Like the reason the Rangers have got off to this hot start was because of Artemi Panarin, but obviously he's not putting up the same amount of points. Well, similar to Kucherov, but Kucherov I think he has like 70 points now. The guy's insane going off this year. Yeah,
that is flawed though, Will. I just want to say, like the MVP thing for the 1920 years flawed because like the Rangers don't even like qualify for the playoffs. So it's like I think that's a huge reason why he didn't win it. They made that like play-in series against Carolina. But like if you're gonna win MVP or any award, like even Erik Karlsson last year, obviously 100 points is 100 points, but like I don't know if any award winners should be on like losing team. Like I don't know.
I agree with that. I agree with that. It's like in baseball, and I know I'm kind of going off topic from what you asked me. With baseball, I explained to my friend last year, Aaron to the Yankees than Shohei Ohtani is to the Angels, because with Judge, the Yankees are a playoff team. Without, they showed it last year, they're not. Like so I do agree with that as well. But I mean, Panarin has just been on fire this year. But going to goaltending, I mean, Igor hasn't been himself this year, and obviously, it has bit the Rangers in the butt because, some of it is on the defense, but in that Blues game, I didn't think he played. I mean, that was a mixture. They just played like garbage that game, but he hasn't really been stealing games like he has in the past, and I think while it's hurting the Rangers, I think it's also fine because you can't always just be relying on your goaltender to win you games. That's how it's been the last 2 years. It didn't work out in the playoffs last year. It didn't work out in the playoffs in 2022 once they got to the Eastern Conference Final. The offense just went kaput, and Igor was out away. He was there alone doing everything and couldn't get it done. But, I think Jonathan Quick was going to come back down to earth. He's still playing very well. I mean, he's a very good backup. And it was kind of nuts that he went on that little run. But, it's at some point the defense has to be better in front of Igor and in front of Jonathan Quick. And once that happens and once it gets back to that consistent basis like it was in the first 20 games, you're going to see Igor's numbers be a lot better. I mean, look at that game against the game. Who did they play yesterday?
Seattle.
Seattle. Yeah, I don't know why I forgot that. I mean, that game against
A
Seattle.
lot of games blend together.
Yeah, it's first week back in school. Every single day feels the same to me right now. It's he just the defense in front of him was very good. I mean, yeah, he allowed 2 goals on the power play, but it was kind of broken defense, right, on those 2 goals. But he was flashing the leather. There was a save that Jonny posted he was on the ground and made a glove save. It was beautiful in the
area chance.
Oh my God, in the last couple minutes of the game, that was beautiful. I mean, when the defense plays structure in front of him, Igor's games gets a lot better, and that's really what it comes down to. So, but the goaltending will be better. Obviously, hasn't been great, but when the defensive structure is consistent like it was in the first 20 games, our goaltenders will be at their best. So that's definitely going to help.
Yeah, I agree. Jonny, how do you feel about the goaltending so far this season?
I mean, Jonathan Quick, what more can you ask for? Like, I feel like I don't have to talk about it because it's kind of a broken record. Everyone's been praising him all year, and he deserves it. He's been unbelievable. Igor is, it's been a little bit of back and forth for me. Like today, like on the Blue Crew, I talked about how, it's great that he won the last 2 games, but, you're playing against Seattle, who was ranked like 27th offensively, I think, since, maybe Christmas, and then Washington, who was ranked like 30th. Like both teams weren't really scoring goals. So, the Rangers do make mistakes, but they aren't as costly because the opponent isn't as offensively, threatening as other teams. Like, we saw it in that Vancouver game, and Laviolette was very pissed off. Like he said, the mistakes we made were loud. Like if the Rangers played the same that they did, and they pretty much played the same in those Washington Seattle games. They just weren't going against a team that has top 10 scorers in the NHL. Like that was the difference, So, yeah, it's great to see Igor, make the saves he has to make, and keep those games low scoring for the Rangers. But am I convinced that those 2 games are going to turn his year around? No. Like I want to see him do it against a top heavy team. And tonight the Rangers play the Golden Knights, and Vegas is missing Jack Eichel. They're missing Shea Theodore. They're missing a lot of good players. So even tonight, you can't really judge it as well, right? Like, I don't want to say those are excuses to make because the Rangers have had injuries too, but it's just the fact. Like come playoff time when everyone's loaded and healthy and ready to go, like you got to be able to trust him against anyone. So, I'm happy that he won those 2 games. I think it was very much needed to get out of the 4-game losing streak. But am I convinced that this is the start for him to get it going here? Not yet.
Yeah. I guess we will have to wait and see because you're right. Vegas they have a lot of injuries right now.
Yeah.
I know William Karlsson is also ruled out tonight. And I think there's like 1 or 2 more that we didn't say.
Yeah, there's a ton.
Yeah. But I don't know. Hopefully the Rangers are just able to pick up a win. At the end of the day, that's all that matters. But throughout the first half of the season, we kind of covered offense, defense, goaltending, coaching, pretty much covered it all there. So I guess like the last thing I want to go over before we wrap things up here is just looking forward to the second half of the season. What do the Rangers need to do in order to just stay on track, clinch the playoffs, and make a good run for the Cup? Because to me, I think the number one priority is getting more stability in the defense, kind of like we talked about. The offense, I have faith in, once that core is fully healthy and Philip Heedle's back, that thing will kind of just work itself out. Igor Shesterkin, he's on a personal mission, like you kind of just went over, to get his game back up to speed. But I think it's just the defense that needs the most work. As soon as that gets consistent and they're playing well against good offensive teams, I think the Rangers will be back to looking like one of the best teams in the NHL. But Will, what are your thoughts? What do the Rangers need to do in order to finish the second half strong? And then when you're done, Jonny, you can take us home with your take.
Offense. I mean, really, it's just offense and defense, I guess. The Rangers right now are kind of one line at 5v5, and that's Panarin, Trocheck, and Lafreniere. Obviously, you kind of want to see. I think with Kakko coming back, their 5v5 numbers for the first line will be a lot better. And obviously, in the first 10 games, their numbers were good, but obviously they weren't executing. They weren't putting pucks in the back of the net, which is why Kakko was taken off that line. But I think 5v5 numbers from the offense need to be a lot better. Defense just more structured, and honestly, I'd love to see the Rangers go back to the 1-3-1 trap they were playing in the neutral zone. I know they've been having a lot of turnovers recently, which does not allow them to get into the trap, but that was super effective in the beginning of the year, and it was a big reason why they got off to that hot start. So that's really what I'd like to see from this team to get them back to what they were in the first 20 games for the second half of the season.
That was a good
I
take.
think they also get their power play going again. It hasn't really been as effective as it was early on. Like they were the number one power play in the NHL for the first 30 games or so, and lately I think I saw yesterday maybe since the New Year or Christmas they were like 17th in the NHL. I think they have 5 in their last 10 games.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the power play has slowed down a little bit, and like they're a team that let's face it, they live and die by the power play. Like my favorite but like least favorite stat, because it's just so telling, was in the first round last year the Rangers scored power play goals in 3 games, won all 3.
Yep.
4 games their power play didn't score, lost all 4. So that was the story of last year's playoff round against the Devils, right? When the power play wasn't clicking, the team wasn't clicking. So I think if they could find a way to find different looks on their first unit, and I said the other night, like maybe just give Alexi Lafreniere a shot, see what he can do. Like I don't know who you take off because they've been so successful the last couple of years, but the kids deserve a shot in my mind. So if you can just find a way to sneak him out there for 1 or 2 reps. I think he got a power play look, I think in St. Louis. I forgot. I think Mikko is sick, right? So I don't think
he was on the first
Mikko
unit.
is sick.
Yep.
So Lafreniere got a couple looks. They didn't score, I don't think, but he looked comfortable and he looked good, and he was making plays. He was holding onto the puck. He was retrieving pucks. He was doing everything right. So I'd like to see him get a chance, but if they can just find a way to get Mika's one-timer going, it was hot for a little bit, like in that stretch when I think he scored the OT winner in Vancouver and then kind of picked it up from there. So if they can get him going again, that'd be good. But I think again, these mistakes they've been making over the past couple games are fixable mistakes. It's not like too much of a concern. So I think they'll figure it out. But the power play is certainly their bread and butter, so they got to get that going again.
I think it would be cool to see Lafreniere up on that first unit, and I feel like it wouldn't even hurt to have one of the other players already on that first unit to move down to the second, because to me, I look at unit 1, unit 2, it's night and day difference. Like the first power play has been carrying, whereas the second one, I know it's picked up a little bit, but really ought to start the season, it was not doing anything. So maybe shaking it up would be a good idea, and I could definitely get behind that. But that about wraps up this breakdown and analysis of the first half of the season. Jonny, thank you very much for joining us. It was definitely a pleasure. And to everyone watching, make sure you guys like, subscribe, ring the bell so you don't miss a notification. Leave your thoughts down in the comment section below, and be sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms at Fireside Rangers. We'll be covering the game tonight against Vegas, and we'll look forward to bringing you more Rangers content tomorrow. Have a good one, and let's go Rangers.
Let's go Rangers.